The Call of Cthulhu by Howard Phillips Lovecraft. The Unearthed Secrets. The attic was a realm of forgotten memories, cold and dusty, a stark contrast to the warm glow of the study below. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and mothballs, and each step kicked up little swirls of dust that danced in the slivers of light piercing through the cracks in the roof. Among the first items I noticed was a peculiar clay bas-relief, its cryptic symbols and monstrous figure immediately drawing my attention. "Hey, what's that you've got there?" Henry asked, his voice echoing slightly as he climbed the creaky ladder into the attic. "Just something from Uncle's collection," I replied, the bas-relief feeling oddly heavy in my hands. "It's unsettling." Henry, with a playful smirk, leaned in closer, his breath visible in the chilly air. "Looks ancient. What do those symbols mean?" I shrugged, a sense of unease settling in. "No idea, but Uncle was obsessed with them. He believed they were connected to a city under the sea, a place he mentioned repeatedly in his notes. Dreams of an underwater city? That's straight out of a fantasy tale," Henry said, his tone light but his eyes betraying a flicker of intrigue. I nodded, recalling the notes about a young artist named Wilcox who had been tormented by nightmares of a cyclopean city and a being called Cthulhu. I repeated, the word feeling strange on my tongue. Henry chuckled. "Sounds like a bad cold." I managed to smile at his jest. "Perhaps, but there's more. This artist, he sculpted this bas-relief amidst his feverish dreams, and when he recovered, he couldn't recall any of it." Henry's expression shifted from amusement to concern. "That's bizarre." Even more bizarre, Uncle passed away shortly after meeting someone who seemed off. He was investigating these dreams, and I think he was close to uncovering something monumental. Henry sat down on an old trunk, his curiosity now fully piqued. "So, what's our next move? Are we going to solve this puzzle?" I took a deep breath, the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders. "Yes, we need to unravel the secrets of this cult and find out what happened to Uncle. But we must tread carefully. If his writings hold any truth, we could be stepping into perilous waters." With a shared look of determination, we began to sift through the chaos of the attic, the shadows around us seeming to whisper secrets of their own. The adventure had just begun, and the path ahead promised both enlightenment and danger. There's no turning back now. The relief in the cult. Leaving behind the attic's cold enigmas, the investigation setting transitioned to the study's warm yet ominous ambience. Here, a young man encountered Professor Thornton, a longtime colleague and confidant of his great-uncle, whose arrival brought not only a wealth of knowledge, but also an aura of mystery. Recalling the tale of Wilcox, the artist who had crafted the bas-relief under the influence of his dreams, added a layer of intrigue to the unfolding mystery. Thornton, examining the artifact, offered insights that went beyond the already known details of its discovery. "These symbols," he said, "may hold the key to understanding the cult's true purpose and the nature of their deity." As Thornton recounted the tales of Inspector Legrasse's disturbing findings in New Orleans, he brought forth new connections, suggesting that the cult's influence might extend far beyond what was previously imagined. "The cult's reach is not confined to those swamps," he explained. "It is a global network, operating in the shadows, awaiting the moment of Cthulhu's resurgence." The young man listened intently, the weight of his great-uncle's legacy pressing upon him. With Thornton's guidance, he prepared to delve deeper into the cult's enigmatic history, its cryptic symbols, and the deities they revered. The path ahead promised a descent into the heart of darkness, where the true extent of the Cthulhu cult's power and the peril it posed to the world would be revealed. Together they stood on the brink of a revelation that could shake the very foundations of their understanding of reality. Inspector Legrasse's discovery. The swamp air was thick with the scent of decay and the distant sound of chanting. Inspector Legrasse, a man of stout heart and keen mind, had never encountered anything like the scene before him. The moon hung low, casting an eerie glow over the glade where the cultists gathered. "Keep your wits about you, men," Legrasse whispered to his officers as they crept closer, their boots sinking into the soft earth. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." As they emerged into the clearing, the sight that greeted them was one of pure horror. A circle of flame crackled in the night, and at its center stood a granite monolith. "What in God's name?" one officer gasped, his voice trailing off. Legrasse's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. The worshippers were unlike any he had seen, their bodies marked with esoteric symbols, their faces hidden behind masks of eldritch design as they danced to the rhythm of the otherworldly chant. "Nafnglu mega du dawanaf, Cthulhu Rollier Wanagalftan," they intoned, the words unfamiliar and yet filled with an ancient power. After concluding the study of Wilcox's dream sculpture with Thornton, Legrasse had followed the trail of esoteric clues to this remote swamp. It was a place whispered about in hushed tones by the superstitious locals, a place where the veil between worlds grew thin. Legrasse signaled to his men and they moved in. The cultists, so engrossed in their ritual, didn't notice the police until it was too late. Chaos erupted as the officers tried to apprehend the frenzied worshippers. "Secure the area," Legrasse ordered, his focus on the surroundings rather than the monolith. Two officers approached cautiously, but as they neared the circle of flame, a shiver ran through them, and they recoiled in fear. It's not right, sir," one stammered. "The air, it's like it's charged." Legrasse took a deep breath and stepped forward himself. He had seen the statuette in Wilcox's possession, but here in the swamp the atmosphere was charged with a palpable dread. "We need to document everything," Legrasse said firmly. "This ritual, these symbols, they're part of something larger, something we've yet to fully grasp." As the night wore on, they collected evidence of the cult's activities, the hieroglyphics, the testimonies of those they had captured, and the lingering aura of the ritual. Each piece was a puzzle that hinted at a larger, darker picture. Legrasse knew this was only the beginning. The true horror, he feared, was yet to reveal itself. But for now, he had made a discovery that would change the course of his investigation, and perhaps the world itself. The sea's dark secret. As Johansen and his crew aboard the Alert navigated the lethal waters, the air was thick with an acrid mist, and the water below frothed with an unclean energy that seemed to pulse with life. "Look there!" cried Bryden, the ship's seasoned navigator known for his keen eye, pointing towards a massive stone pillar rising from the depths. "What is that?" Johansen's eyes widened as he took in the sight. It's not possible," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. The crew gathered at the railing, staring in disbelief at the structures that loomed before them. Johansen, recalling the ancient texts he had studied during their voyage, recognized the city as Relaya, with its impossible angles and loathsome shapes, now risen from the sea's bed. Suddenly, the sea erupted, and a form of cosmic majesty and terror rose from the city. The ancient entity, its tentacles writhing, towered over them. "We have to get out of here," Johansen shouted, his voice laced with panic. "Full speed ahead." The crew scrambled to their stations, the engines of the Alert roaring to life as they attempted to escape the nightmare that pursued them. The ship cut through the venomous seething astern, but the entity was relentless. In a desperate maneuver, Johansen steered the yacht directly at the monstrous form. "Hold on!" he yelled as they braced for impact. The collision sent a shockwave through the water, giving them a moment's respite. The crew, gasping for breath, dared to hope they might survive this ordeal. But the sea had more secrets to reveal, and their escape was far from certain. The dark secret of the sea, the awakening of the ancient entity, was a tale of human curiosity, clashing with the unfathomable forces of an ancient world, a tale that would haunt the survivors for the rest of their lives. Johansen, with a heavy heart, knew that this dark secret must be shared, for the world needed to be warned of the dangers that lurked beneath the waves. The clash with Cthulhu. Johansen, the captain, maintained his steady grip on the helm, eyes locked on the dark waters ahead. "Keep your wits about you, men," he cautioned, aware of the ominous presence they shared the waters with. Peters, the first mate, leaned closer to Johansen, his concern evident. "There's something unnatural about this place," he murmured. The captain gave a solemn nod, acknowledging the first mate's unease. Suddenly, the ship jolted as a massive form rose from the ocean's depths. It was the dreaded Cthulhu, the very mention of which had sent shivers through seasoned sailors. Ryden, gripped by an inexplicable mirth, was quickly subdued by Johansen's stern command to focus. The crew braced themselves as the great beast neared, its tentacles undulating menacingly. With a resolute turn of the wheel, Johansen faced the entity, the alert charging towards the nightmare. The crew held their breath, expecting a catastrophic impact. Yet the anticipated collision never came. The creature vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving the sailors in a state of shocked relief. "We've evaded it for now," Johansen declared, a hint of disbelief in his tone. "Stay vigilant, and let's hope our path remains clear." The Yale alert tailed on, the crew no longer silent but murmuring amongst themselves, the memory of their brush with death fresh in their minds, and the ever-present threat of Cthulhu's return looming over them. The toll of knowledge. The chapter unfolds in the narrator's dimly lit study, where he is surrounded by his great-uncle's papers. The silence of the room is occasionally broken by the crackle of the fireplace. "Uncle George, what have you stumbled upon?" he mutters to himself, his voice a whisper in the quiet room. A knock at the door startles him. "Kine," he calls out, his voice steady. Inspector Legrasse enters, his face showing concern. "I've come straight from the docks," he says, his voice heavy with unspoken horrors. The narrator listens intently to Legrasse's account, his heart racing with each word. Legrasse shakes his head solemnly. "We must tread carefully," he warns. The two men sit in contemplative silence, the gravity of their discovery weighing heavily upon them. As the fire dwindles to embers, the narrator begins to write, his words a beacon of truth in a sea of darkness. The cost of ignorance is far greater than the toll of knowledge. The cult's pervasive shadow. The night was unusually still as Arthur sat huddled in his great-uncle's study, the only light coming from a flickering candle. Papers and strange artifacts lay scattered on the desk, each one a piece of the puzzle that was the Cthulhu cult. His eyes were fixed on an ancient map marked with locations that seemed to form a pattern. "Look at this, Sarah," Arthur said, turning to his friend who was peering over his shoulder. "These markings, they're not random, they're a trail." Sarah leaned closer, her interest piqued. "A trail leading to what?" "To the cult's shadow," Arthur replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're hiding in plain sight." As the candle flickered out, plunging them into darkness, a chill ran down their spines. Arthur fumbled for matches, his hands shaking slightly. The flame cast eerie shadows on the walls, making the room feel alive with the whispers of the past. Sarah glanced at the bas-relief they had found earlier, its symbols a language of the unknown. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. "What are they waiting for?" "The stars," Arthur answered, his gaze distant. "For the return of their gods. And when that happens, the world as we know it will change forever." They sat in silence, the weight of the revelation settling over them. The cult's pervasive shadow was more than just a tale. It was a living, breathing entity, waiting for the moment to emerge from the depths of time. With determination in her eyes, Sarah looked at Arthur. "We'll make them understand. We have to." And with that, they began to plan, not knowing if they were the hunters or the hunted, but certain of one thing: the shadow of the cult was spreading, and they were the only ones standing in its way. A desperate warning. The night was unusually still as I sat at my desk. The soft ticking of the grandfather clock, the only sound. Papers lay scattered before me, a testament to the journey I had embarked upon. My friend, the curator from Patterson, broke the silence with his concern for my withdrawn behavior. "We must make it clear for anyone who dares to read," he said, understanding the gravity of my task. Together we crafted the warning, a narrative woven from nightmares and reality. "The same creature that haunted Johansen at sea," I whispered. "It all connects," my friend added, referring to the broader implications of the evidence we had gathered. We pondered the enormity of our task. "We present the evidence as it is," I replied. "We lay it all out and let them see the truth for themselves." "The risk?" he asked, fear in his eyes. "We take it," I sighed. "The alternative is a fate far worse." With that, we continued writing, our words a plea to any who would listen. The warning was clear. The cult was real, its deity awakening, and the threat to humanity imminent. As dawn broke, we prepared to share our findings, a message of caution in a world possibly not ready to face the darkness beyond the veil of reality. With a hopeful spirit, I re-dyed myself to share the truth, praying it would be enough to turn the tide against the encroaching shadows.